Welcome to Holy Impact, a HolyImpactMinistries.com production. I'm Pastor Scott Blaine. God bless you and thank you for sharing your time with us here today. Our topical study today will be entitled, Do Not Submit. Over this past week, I've taken the time to monitor the internet and the different social media outlets, as well as both the mainstream news media and the alternative news media outlets. I've listened to several different theories and theological understandings, as well as many prophetical assumptions and predictions. I've seen everything from uneducated and unstudied paranoia to the solid and factually prophetic truths of God's Word being proclaimed throughout the land. I've heard of everything from spaceships, beams of light, the return of the Nephilim giants, strange noises and sounds from the skies, portholes and stargates, to transhumanism and human chimeras, GMO, fluoride in the water, false prophets, one world orders, martial law, and antichrist Jesuit popes, and even lizard people. I'm old and wise enough to remember Heaven's Gate and Comet Hale-Bopp, Halley's Comet, and the Our Lady of Fatima story, Y2K, Jim Jones, the Mayan prophecy, and even Pat Robertson, who informed his 700 Club TV show audience around the world that he knew when the world would end. I guarantee you, by the end of 1982, there's going to be a judgment on the world, Robertson said. Out of over 4,000 Christian denominations, many of them who are still with us today, have wrongly proclaimed the coming rapture of the church, or the return of Jesus Christ, or the beginning of the tribulation. So, with all that in mind, let's go over just a few facts and major events that are going to take place here in the month of September that everyone seems to be talking about. First of all, the first thing that we have is September 12th. Madonna's Rebel Heart Tour opens in Washington, D.C., and it just so happens that her new theme will be called Desecration of the Bride and Arrival of Fallen Angels. And then if we jump down to September 23rd, which is the most eventful day of the month, we have the first Jesuit Pope in history coming to make his first historical speech to the Congress of the United States of America. The same Jesuit Pope who's already signed a treaty with the Palestinian people agreeing to vote on a Palestinian state, which obviously means the breaking of the back of Israel and slashing her land into indefensible pieces in order to insert this new Palestinian state within her borders. And if we dig a little deeper, we find that on September 23rd, we have the 266th Pope, who is the first Jesuit Pope in history, meeting with the President of the United States on the 266th day of the year. What makes this interesting is that the average human gestation period is just 266 days, or 9 months. Many feel that this is a biblical warning that something could be birthed out of this historical meeting. September 23rd is also God's annual Day of Atonement, also known as Yom Kippur, which also heralds in God's 70th Jubilee year. This may be why Rabbi Kanevsky, a prominent Jewish rabbi, has called all Jews back to Israel for the return of the Messiah. The first in history Jesuit Pope will then proceed to the United Nations, where he will push for his one world order agenda that fits hand in glove with the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda that will reach around the globe and affect every nation on the face of the earth. On the 24th of September, the Pope will officially make his historical address to the United States Congress, and on the 25th, this same Pope will hold his pagan mass in Madison Square Garden in New York City. This 25th day of September is also the 500th day until climate chaos. If you remember, it was French minister Laurent Fabius who famously proclaimed that we had 500 days to climate chaos. That time span ends September 25th. On September 26th and 27th, this first ever Jesuit Pope will then be traveling to Philadelphia for the 2015 World Meeting of Families. September 28th will be the last of the 4 blood moon tetrad, and this particular moon will be a supermoon, and it will be clearly visible from the city of Jerusalem. September 28th just also happens to be God's Feast of Tabernacles, also known as Sukkot. And I saved the best for last. September 13, my friends, is also known to God's people as Elul 29, which is the end of the 7th year Sabbath of God. Most Christians are unaware that God has commanded more than just one Sabbath a week. God also has commanded what is also known as the Shemitah. The Shemitah comes every 7 years, and the 7th year is known as a sabbatical year, or a Shemitah year. The 29th day of Elul is the end of that sabbatical year, and at sundown on Elul 29, all debt was to be forgiven and released. And for the next year, the land was to rest with no reaping or sowing or harvesting. It was meant to be a blessing for God's people. But if God's people did not keep God's Sabbaths, and if they did not follow His laws, His commandments, and His precepts, that blessing would become a curse for God's people. It's interesting to note that every major stock market crash in history has happened on Elul 29, as well as several other interesting historical events. More information on that can be found if you just Google or YouTube the Shemitah, or you can pick up Jonathan Cahn's book, The Mystery of the Shemitah. But with all that being said, there's no doubt in my mind, or in anyone else's mind who knows and loves God and who follows the things of God and obeys His commandments, that a great shaking is indeed coming. I felt it in my own heart over the last several years, and I've been shouting it from the rooftops for at least the last 3 years. I've even built a website and a ministry website to help people know and to understand how to interpret the times that we're now living in, and how to get back to the things of God and away from the paganry of today's modern-day version of Christianity. Our own Messiah told us, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you say at once, a shower is coming, and so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be scorching heat, and it happens. You hypocrites, He calls them. You know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? And why do you not judge for yourselves what is right? He said this in 1 Thessalonians 5:1 through 6. Now concerning the times and the seasons, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them as labor pains come upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you are not in darkness, brothers, for that day to surprise you like a thief. For you are all children of the light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of the darkness. So then let us not sleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. My friends, we who know God will not be surprised by His coming, because we have been awake, waiting, and watching for His return. He will not come to us like a thief in the night, but He will come to the world like a thief in the night, even though there are plenty of watchmen sounding the trumpet of warning. The very signs that He said would manifest are all around us. Everything that is evil is being called good, and everything that is good is being called evil. God has become a cartoon joke, and His people are depicted on sitcoms and in movies as jokes, fools, stupid people, people who are worthless. We've pushed Him out of our schools and away from our children. We've pushed Him out of our halls of justice and our houses of legislation. We've overwritten His laws, wiped our feet on His Sabbaths, and shaken our fists in His face by not only murdering His unborn children, but harvesting them and turning their organs and body parts into an industry for money, for hungry wolves to feed on. We now shove needles into our children's arms and inject them with aluminum and mercury, and the cells of unborn children and the antibodies of cloned cows that have been injected with human DNA. We're now leading our own children into the lion's den when we take them to school to be taught in kindergarten about homosexual marriage and berated about whether they are really a little girl or a little boy. Now forcing them to use the same bathrooms, to confuse and disorient them, and to disconnect them from their faith in God, and to turn them from the pagan god to the pagan god of evolution. Schools around the country now openly offering any child a sex change operation without the parents' consent or knowledge. Wicked and demonic wolves that feed on our children while we think they're being taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. We send them to school as healthy young God-fearing children, and we get them back as godless, confused homosexuals with more needle tracks than a crack addict, full of autism, asthma, disorientation, and sickness, not knowing who they are or where they're going or why they're even here on this earth. They're dumbed down with Common Core, Big Pharma, and in the collective mindset, and taught atheistic doctrines of demons. And then they come home to get a dose of Ritalin, Paxil, or whatever other isotopic drug we've put them on, and we sit them in front of their demonic video games that let them rape and murder each other while their brains turn to mush and their hearts become full of demons. And they wake up, and they do it again, day after day. My friends, we've out-Sodomed Sodom. Not only have we passed our children through the fire to Baal, we've bowed the knee to the god of entertainment, to the god of convenience, to the god of money, to the god of political correctness, to the god of our wicked music industry, to the god of 2.5 Men, sitcoms, soap operas, sports, and American Idol. As God's people, we've been destroyed for lack of knowledge because we've rejected knowledge. We've departed from the faith by devoting ourselves to deceitful spirits and the teachings of demons, to the insincerity of liars whose consciences are seared by wickedness. We become lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to our parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. We've said that we will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, we've accumulated for ourselves teachers to suit our own passions, and we've turned away from listening to the truth and wandered off into myths. We've made void the word of God in order to hold on to our own traditions. My friends, we must not submit. We must not submit to these vaccinations that are going into our children's arms without knowing what's in them. We must not submit to the murdering of unborn children. We must not submit to having our children being taught homosexuality in our schools and in our houses of God. We must not submit to the political correctness of the day. We must not submit to homosexual marriage. We must not submit to having our children playing these demonic video games, movies, and music. Stand up, my friends, and take control. Stand up, take responsibility. Stand up and fight for the things of God. We are men of God. Where are the men of God? Where are the Samsons and the Davids and the Joshuas and the Judas Maccabees who will stand, who will fight for him? Do not submit, my friends. Do not submit to their ungodly laws and to their wicked handling of your children. Do not submit to their false religion and their first day of the week Sabbaths and their rituals and their myths and their transubstantiation and their indulgences and their homosexual clergymen. We need to stand up straight and to walk like men of God. The Lion of David is with us. Greater is he that is within us than he that is within the world. Fear not he who can kill the body, but fear he who can kill both body and soul and cast them into the pit. We need to stand and throw this wickedness to the ground. Men of God need to dust off our boots and to pick up our armor and to get into the fight. We've been born for a time such as this. We've been chosen to be the generation that ushers in the coming kingdom at the end of the age. Make straight your paths. The Messiah is indeed coming. Prepare the way. Make ready your children. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Teach them diligently to your children, and talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and make them as frontlets between your eyes. Write them on your doorposts of your homes and of your gates. It's time to prepare, and above all, do not submit. Luke 21:10 says, Then he said to them, Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences. And there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues, to the prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors for my name's sake. This will be your opportunity to bear witness. Settle it, therefore, in your minds, not to meditate beforehand how to answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom which none of your adversaries will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be delivered up, even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you they will put to death. You will be hated by all for my name's sake. But not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance you will gain your lives. He who loves mother or father more than me is not worthy of me. He who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. We are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that we may proclaim the excellences of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. We're not pacifists. We are warriors. And with the sword of truth that proceeds from our mouths, we cannot be stopped. Our kingdom is not of this world. Our kingdom is still yet to come. And our king will smash these earthly kingdoms like clay pots with a rod of iron. The one who conquers and who keeps his works until the end, to him he will give authority over the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron, as when earthly pots are broken into pieces, even as he himself has received authority from his Father. For do you not know that we will sit in judgment over angels? He who says he knows him and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. The Word of God says that if we love God, we will obey his commandments, and his commandments will not be burdensome. We must obey God, not man. Call no man on earth your father, for you have one Father who is in heaven. And call no man your instructor, for you have one instructor, the Christ. Do not submit, and do not submit your children. Stand and be counted, that he may know your name, and that it may be recorded in the book of life. It's past time to get into the fight. It's time to put on the full armor of God and to stand up straight. If we are friends of this world, then we are enemies of God. We need not submit to the ungodly things of men. The sand is leaving the hourglass as we speak. God bless and shalom.